Hey you guys, good evening. Welcome to my home office. I am still here in my home in the province, but I'm actually scheduled to leave for the city on Monday. And at this point of the video, it's a Saturday, so I only have one day left here. And that's actually very sad for me because I really want to stay longer here, but alas, I can't. And for sure tomorrow is going to be very, very busy for me because I would be closing down the house. So it's actually very, very, bittersweet for me because this means that I would have to leave my fur babies again for a few weeks before I could come back and see them again. But anyway, that's life. Now, the reason why I decided to vlog today is because there was just something running at the back of my mind the entire day. And this is actually related to my upcoming trip to Japan, most specifically the pilgrimage of Kumano Kodo. So if you didn't catch my previous vlog, I actually stated there that aside from going to Japan because of attending the Brush Festival and the Cosme Week makeup trade show, my partner and I are also going to be doing the pilgrimage of Kumano Kodo. So I'm actually very excited for this, and I have actually been wanting to do this pilgrimage around 2018 and 2019. Now, I can't really exactly remember when I got this information about Kumano Kodo, but for sure it was in one show that was featured on NHK World. And what really attracted me to this was this, the spiritual aspect of this pilgrimage. And I said to myself, this is really special, and I wanted to do this. And because of this very special aspect, I thought to myself that maybe I should do it on my 40th. But the most unfortunate thing of all is that I actually turned 40 right in the heart of the pandemic. So it was in April of 2020. So that's why any plans of doing the pilgrimage at Kumano Kodo actually flew out the window after that. Although I couldn't really say that it was buried, but sometimes I would think about it, and then it would disappear again, but it would linger. It would linger. I also do have to say that doing Kumano Kodo this year was not in the books because my partner and I was actually thinking of heading to Europe to celebrate our anniversary. So it's our 19th year together this year, and I was actually also looking forward to that. But we have to move that trip to next year, and the main reason why is because my partner and I are working on a film, and around the time that I was supposed to plan for our trip to Europe, the production company was not able to give us our working schedules, and by the time we received it, it was actually too close to our intended departure date that I just found it too impossible to book flights, find accommodations, apply for a visa, things like that. So I think maybe destiny just found a way of actually showing us that this was the year that we're going to be doing Kumano Kodo. Now, because my schedules was so free at around this time of the year, I asked my partner, hey, since my schedule's so free, would you mind if I hop over to Japan to participate in the Brush Festival again this year? And I'm also going to tie it into joining Cosme Week in Osaka. And he goes yeah, sure, no problem. Why don't you do it? And then all of a sudden he just looked at me and he said, why don't we do Kumano Kodo this year? And I just looked at him, and there was a slight bit of excitement and panic mixed in my head at one time because just as the same issue that I had with our planned trip to Europe, when he actually said it, it was just really too close to comfort to the schedule that I already had planned for going to Japan. Anyway, before we start talking more about all the preparations that I did for Kumano Kodo, let me explain by saying that Kumano Kodo is actually a group of pilgrimage routes in the Kii Peninsula in Wakayama in Japan. Now, these pilgrimage routes have been in place for at least 1,000 years, and I am so excited for this, especially with the fact that my partner and I are doing it together. So for my vlog today, I would like to share with you guys the initial preparations that I did for our trip to Kumano, Kodo. I am hoping that in doing this might prove useful and insightful for somebody who might do it in the future. And just in case if you're watching this and you've already done it before, please let me know down in the comments, any insights, any revelations, any lessons that you would like to impart to me, so that it can also guide me as I go along my way in the journey. Now, by the way, if I keep on looking down, I do apologize because I actually have notes here. I had to write down a lot of my thoughts just so that I have a cohesive explanation going on, because there were a lot of factors that really affected this trip to Kumano, Kodo, especially the initial preparations that was needed to do. Okay, so I started planning for Kumano, Kodo around the last week of July, like around the first week of August. The most difficult aspect of this preparation was actually finding accommodations along our chosen route. So more of this later. My partner and I are actually coming from Kyoto, from Hiroshima, and from Osaka. So doing the Kumano, Kodo is actually the last leg of our trip to Japan. Now, on a side note, we are not using a train pass for this portion of our trip, and the main reason why is because it's useless, because my partner and I were going to be walking for 5 days around the peninsula, and most of the train passes range between 5 and 7 days. Now, I think it's best for you to purchase a standalone ticket to bring you in to the Kumano, Kodo area and to bring you out. It's going to be a tad cheaper than a train pass, but then again, you won't be using that because aside from the fact that you'll be walking around the pilgrimage route, you'll be taking the bus, so the train pass is actually going to be useless. But if you do insist of getting a train pass, especially if you're going to be traveling around Japan for an extended period of time, if you do have the national Japan Rail Pass, you will have no problem accessing this portion of the country. But if you prefer to purchase a regional pass, purchase one from the JR West company and purchase the Kansai Wide Area Pass, because this is the train pass that will allow you to come down from either Osaka and access the train system around the Wakayama area of Japan. Okay, all right, I digress. Now, according to my readings and watching videos on YouTube, there are 5 or around 6 pilgrimage routes here in Kumano, Kodo. Now, 2 of those routes are not popular or no longer used, and the main reason why is because the ancient routes have been paved with contemporary roads, and it's really not safe for pilgrims to be walking that route. Now, I think that 2 or 3 other routes, which I'm not so familiar with because I didn't read up for them because I was really not interested. It's actually for very experienced hikers, and I believe you would need to have a guide with you when you do it because it's actually very, very difficult. Now, the route that we're doing is the route that is one of the easiest, and it can actually be self-guided, and it's actually the most popular route on the Kumano, Kodo, and it's called the Nakahechi route. The Nakahechi, or the Imperial route, is actually a 2-day hike that would take us from the start of the trail at Takejiri Oji all the way to Kumano Hongu Taisha. So if my calculations are correct, this is going to be 34.5 kilometers. Now from there, we're going to connect to the Kogomotori Goe route, which starts at Kumano Hongu Taisha, and then it's going to go all the way to Koguchi, which is a 1-day trek, and it's around 13 kilometers. And we're going to be staying there overnight, and then the following day we will connect to the Omogotori Goe route. So that's from Koguchi all the way to Kumano Nachi Taisha. So we'll be staying again there for 1 more night, and then the following day, which is the last leg of our pilgrimage, we will just take a bus that will bring us to Kumano Hayatama Taisha, and that will complete our pilgrimage route, and we'll visit all of the 3 sacred sites in Kumano, Kodo. So it sounds daunting, but I'm more excited than scared. So again, I'm going to be doing this with my partner, and it's something that I would really love to share with him. So now that I told you the route that we're taking, I'm going to share with you guys some things that I wished I did. Like for example, I wish I had 3 months to actually like, plan this properly. But like, at the end of the day, I'm just so glad that I was so able to plan this. So first things first, Kumano Kodo actually has an official website, and it's www.kumano-travel.com. So this is where you'll get all the necessary info to actually do this pilgrimage. So you will have the route info there, you will have accommodation listings there, you even have luggage forwarding. What else do you have there? So you even have like, bus routes, bus timetable, you have bus fares, things like that. Everything that you would need to survive this pilgrimage is listed there. Now the website takes getting used to, but if you're observant and if you are quite intuitive about the things that you would need, it's going to be very easy to navigate. But also do take note that the website only runs from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Japan Standard Time. So if you want to book anything, if you want to check anything, do it at around this time, because at least if you have questions, you can start it on the My Chat app, on the side, and you'll be able to get all the information that you need. So just do take note of that. Now, what else? Oh yeah, so during the planning stage, I actually ordered a pilgrim pack. And it actually looks like this. So you have the Kumano Kodo logo here of the crow with the 3 legs. And inside this pilgrim pack is actually very useful information that you would need for your trip to Kumano Kodo. Now, let me also say that all the things that was found inside here is actually available on the website. So it really is up to you if you want to purchase this or not. Now, for me, as a personal thing, I actually prefer to read stuff physically. And I think it's just because that's how I've always done it. I'm 43 now, and sometimes I have trouble reading things from the internet, and I would love to have things here in my hand, and it makes it easier for me to navigate and to hop from one page to another and put bookmarks, things like that, yada yada yada. Okay, anyway, let's go through the entire pilgrim pack here. So the first thing that I have here is the Kumano Kodo official guide. So it's a book. Now, what is inside here is actually a lot of information about the pilgrimage. So you have route information here. So you also have a lot of trivia here about the pilgrimage routes, and then you also have a lot of descriptions about certain religious statues. You also have certain info about certain parts in the route. So it's actually very interesting, and you even have here info about the trees in the area, the flowers, the plants, the animals. So it's actually a very interesting book, and I'm someone who loves to read. Even about onsens is actually here. So that's actually very, very interesting, because one thing that we guys have to know is that there are a lot of onsens that you can visit when you're doing this pilgrimage in Kumano Kodo. So I've actually read through most of the book here, and I believe that it's actually very helpful, because it's just making me mentally prepared about the routes and then the certain stops, and I find it very, very helpful. So this is also a nice thing to have in your bookshelf. It's a very nice reminder of this pilgrimage. Okay, all right, so now the other thing that I have here is this map. So it's a very big map, and it actually shows you the entire route of the pilgrimage. See, so the only unfortunate thing about this is that it's actually very big, that I don't think I will be bringing this, because I don't want to be opening this on the trail. But I've also been studying the route here, just familiarizing myself with it, and it's actually very, very helpful. Now, speaking of maps, we have 2 other maps here. So we have the map here of the entire Nakahechi route. So this is the route that my partner and I will be taking. And I'm so happy that this is a pocket size map, because it's going to be very easy to keep in my hiking backpack, or even in my pocket. And what I love about this is that it shows you a lot of the interesting points along the route that can really add more dimension into this pilgrimage that we will be doing. Now, the other map here is the map of Honggu. Now, this just actually shows the immediate area of Kumano, Honggu, Taisha. So this is the main temple in this pilgrimage walk, and it also shows you the main area of Yonomine Onsen. So it's one of the most popular onsen areas in this pilgrimage tours. I am so impressed on how detailed they are that it just ensures that you don't get lost when you're doing this, and you have everything that you need to survive this pilgrimage walk. Okay, all right, so the other thing that I have here is this I think it's a route map again. So it's foldable, by the way, and after I've actually perused through this thing, I could say that it's actually a condensed version of the official guidebook. So that's also the reason why I'm not bringing this, because I will just be bringing this because everything that is here, you have the route info, you have the map here, and then it also gives you certain places of interest. So it's really essential, and it's very small that you can just really keep it in your backpack. Okay, now the other thing that we have here is the safety notice. Very important. You have to read this because it will just give you an idea on how to take care of yourself when you are doing this pilgrimage. Okay, so it tells you here what essentials to bring, like first aid kit. You have to bring a light source. You have to bring liquids, things like that, and then you have to be careful on the trail because there will be animals and reptiles and insects along the way, so just be very careful. And then one thing that's very important that is actually listed here is the emergency numbers that you need to contact just in case you need help. So again, very important. And the final thing that was in the pilgrim package is this stamp booklet. So if you don't know this yet, Kumano Kodo is actually the sister pilgrimage of the Camino de Santiago in Spain. And the best thing about this is that if you actually collect stamps, you actually put them here. And if in the future you plan of doing Camino de Santiago in Spain, you actually also do collect stamps when you do that. And if you are able to finish this, you will be actually awarded as a dual pilgrim, and you will be given a certificate. So at this point, I think there are at least 10,000 people who are registered as dual pilgrims. And this was actually not something that I was interested in doing, but it just kind of happened. I didn't know that this can happen, but it just adds a nice layer and interest into doing the Kumano Kodo. And the reason why I'm saying that is because my partner and I, we've also talked about doing Camino de Santiago years ago, and we were actually planning of doing it with friends, but it hasn't come into fruition yet. So I don't know if that will ever happen, but just in case, I'm gonna be collecting stamps during the Kumano Kodo trip. And in the future, if I do decide to do the Camino de Santiago, I'm just gonna flip this booklet over and collect stamps from the Camino de Santiago route. Now, also one thing, by the way, you have to check the website of Kumano Kodo because they are very specific there on which routes you're going to take and which stamps you're going to collect if you want to become a dual pilgrim. Okay? All right. Now, accommodations. So I was actually able to book lodging through the Kumano Kodo website and through booking.com. Now, I initially wanted to book everything through the Kumano Kodo website, but unfortunately, it wasn't possible because a lot of the places where I wanted to stay at, it was no longer available. And it was actually because of this that I had to move our day one of the pilgrimage into a much more later date, just so that we're able to get lodging along along the route. So the route that you're taking will actually dictate the accommodations, okay? So you have to be very, very careful with this. Okay, so let me share with you guys the accommodations that I booked, and maybe this can also prove very, very helpful and insightful. Okay, so on the first leg of the Nakahechi route, so the first leg starts from Takijiri Oji all the way to Chikatsuyu settlement. So my partner and I will be staying at third place Kumano Kodo in the Nonaka area. So you can actually only book this accommodation through the official website of Kumano Kodo. Okay, so this is not available anywhere. Now when I booked this, it costs around 37,400 yen for 2 people, and it includes supper, breakfast, and a lunchbox. So if there's one thing that you guys need to know is that when you're doing this pilgrimage, you are walking through or hiking through the mountains, and there are no convenience stores located there. Like, there's the odd, like maybe what you call this, vending machine, but food might be a problem. So booking a place which includes food options is actually a great way of just minimizing your problems. Now the second leg, this is from Chikatsuyu to Kumano Hongu Taisha. Now the place that I booked is called Ashita no Mori. Now this one I booked through booking.com, and this is actually located in the Hongu area, but it's not in the main area where Kumano Hongu Taisha is located. So you would need to take a bus to actually get here, or you can actually also hike to get here. So I think it's gonna take around an hour and a half, 2 hours max, from Kumano Hongu Taisha Temple all the way to here. Now before I talk more about in detail, Ashita no Mori costs around 37,000 yen for 2 people, and it's also inclusive of food, which is actually great. Now, this Ashita no Mori is actually located in the Kawayu Onsen area, so it's not located in the Yonomine Onsen area. So, as I've said earlier in the video, in Kumano Kodo, there are also a lot of onsens, and the most popular one is Yonomine Onsen. Now, I actually wanted to book accommodations in that area because this is 1,000-year-old onsen, and then there are some amazing spiritual aspects about this, and also there's so much history. But again, unfortunately, because of the time frame that when I started booking this, no lodging was available. So I was actually so glad that I was able to find this, and I was able to book it instantly through booking.com. So I was very grateful for that. And what's making me so excited about this is because in the Kawayu Onsen area, right in front of Ashita no Mori, there's actually let's say a hot spring or a river, and you're actually able to go and visit. You're actually able to just dip yourself there, and I've only seen a few videos of it and some pictures, and I'm really, really excited about it. Okay, next we're gonna talk about the Tor Torre route. Now this one is the route that will take us from Kumano Hongu Taisha all the way to Koguchi, so the settlement of Koguchi. Now I was able to book accommodations there by the name of Takada Greenland, and the only special thing about this is that it's actually 30 minutes away from Koguchi by car. Even if it's 30 minutes away from the main starting point of the trail in Koguchi, this accommodation actually offers to pick you up from the trail head, and then the following day they'll actually drive you back to the area, and you can start your pilgrimage walk yet again. Now this actually costs 27,400 yen for 2 people, and it also again includes food, and you can only book this accommodation through the website. So as much as I would have wanted to book again accommodations within the Koguchi area, because at least I am in an area where there are convenience stores, there might be a market where maybe I could buy some fruits that can sustain us as we go through our pilgrimage. But unfortunately, again, because of the time frame when I was booking, under 2 months, this is the only one that was available. Okay, so again, I'm also very excited for this because this is also like, you know, an onsen, and I'm hoping to enjoy like, you know, again, like, you know, a hot bath and a hot pool, because that will just really relieve me of all of the stress and the, like, you know, physical ache of walking for like hours in a day. Okay, so for the Ogumotori Goe route, so this is the one that will take us from Koguchi all the way to Kumano Nachi Taisha. Now, technically, I was able to book this small guest house through booking.com, and this is actually located a few minutes away from the main entrance of Kumano Nachi Taisha temple. So it's actually not really located on the main, like, you know, hiking route, but that's fine. Again, I was so glad I was able to find this, because the one that was listed on the Kumano Kodo website was not available, and it was just too expensive. So this one costs us around 16,000 yen, but the only caveat with this is that it doesn't have any food service. So I've also done some initial checking on Google Maps, and I have actually seen that, like, you know, there are some restaurants within the area. There might be a convenience store, I think, but it's a few minutes away, and if I need to walk it, I would, like, you know, really walk it. But I'm also going to try to see if by the time, like, you know, before we leave for this portion of our, like, you know, pilgrimage, I'm going to try to see if I could get food in Koguchi, so that by the time we get here, we don't really have to go around and search for food, especially when we're very tired and very, very hungry. Okay, and then the following day from that, we're going to be taking a bus from where we are all the way to Kumano Hayatama Taisha, which is the final temple that you need to visit when you're doing this Kumano Kodo pilgrimage walk or hike. And in doing so, it will actually complete visiting the 3 main shrines of the Kumano Kodo. Now after this, we'll head back to Tanabe, so it's the main, like, you know, jump off point, wherein we'll have to take the bus to get to the starting trail of Kumano Kodo, and we'll be staying at a guest house there. It's called Ichie second location, and we'll stay there for a night just to rest and recuperate, because the following day we'll have to catch another train to head to Kansai International Airport, so we'll catch our flight to head back home here. Now, this guest house is where we also stayed the night before we actually, like, you know, start our pilgrimage at Kumano Kodo. So staying here in Ichie second location actually also solves our luggage issue, because although like, you know, in the Kumano Kodo website, they actually offer luggage forwarding services, but when I actually checked it out, it was actually very expensive, and there were some portions of the route that they cannot send your luggage to, because it's just a little bit, like, you know, out of the way or impossible, or not within the more, like, you know, popular route that most, like, you know, tourists take. So we'll be leaving our luggage in this guest house, and we'll pay, I think, around 500 yen per person per luggage per day, and that kind of like solves it. And if you're not staying in this guest house, you can actually leave your luggage at the Tanabe Tourism Center. It's near Kitanabe Station. I don't know how much it costs, like, you know, on a per day basis, but just do take note that you have to leave your luggage and to take it from the office within operating hours. Okay, so it's not a 24-hour thing where you can just, you know, pop in and, you know, leave your stuff or get it as needed. So maybe 9 to 5 or 9 to 6. So do check their website. I'm going to put it down in the description box as well. Okay, so for the entire, like, you know, initial preparations that I did, looking for accommodations was actually the most challenging aspect of this pilgrimage to Kumano Kodo. Like, you know, I was having so much tension, headache, like, you know, for days just waiting, that I was like, oh my gosh, it was driving me a little bit crazy. And just, like, you know, the waiting, well, although through booking.com, like, you know, booking is instant, which is great, but when you are booking accommodations through the official website of Kumano Kodo, it is not real time. You have to make a request, so you would have to check each of the accommodations that you would need to book depending on where you are, like, in the route. And then what's so frustrating is that sometimes when you check the dates, everything is full. And so you hop from one guest house to another on the website until you actually find one that's available. And that was the frustrating part that happened with me. It took me so much time to do that. Now also you would need to wait. So when you find a guest house that you want to stay at, you would need to make a request first, and then you'd have to wait for them to answer, and it can take up to a month. And by the time I got the alert on my email that they had space for us, that is when you will actually click on the link to pay for your lodging. So that portion is easy. The only thing that's a little bit difficult was actually the waiting. And can you imagine that by the time I was looking for accommodations, it was under 2 months before my intended arrival date in the area, and a lot of the lodgings were already full. Oh my gosh, so full. So I was really panicking, but I managed to find a few accommodations along the route. And also one thing, by the way, it says here on my notes that if you are a solo traveler, this might be an issue for you, because there are some accommodations that do not accept solo travelers. They're also very strict on the month that you can book as a solo traveler. So if you're going to be doing this and you're it's a time constraint, it's actually best to do it with a friend or with a partner, because it just makes it easier for you to book accommodations. Okay, and again, as I've been stating earlier, wherein I was talking about accommodations, I think you would have heard that it's actually quite expensive when you're booking accommodations throughout the route. But do know that there are some accommodations that are actually quite affordable. There are some guest houses and hostels, and I found one, and I'm gonna put the link down in the description box so that you can also check it out. But this one was found in the Honggu area near Kumano, Honggu, Taisha, and it's called Kumano Backpackers, I think, if I remembered correctly. So yeah, so I actually initially booked there during my initial arrival into Honggu, but I had to cancel it because again I had to move dates around in order for me to be able to get accommodations within the Nakahechi route, especially the first portion, and also around the latter portion of our pilgrimage walk. Okay, yeah, so I believe that's it. Those are the things that have been bugging me at the back of my hand the entire day while I was just reviewing it. I usually do that when I'm about to travel, because I would like to see if I did the best that I could. And it's also a good way of actually reviewing things and just also ironing things out. And I'm just so glad that I was able to do this with you guys, because I was able to express it. I wasn't just keeping it inside myself. Okay, all right, so I believe that's it. So if you guys have any more questions about doing this pilgrimage at Kumano Kodo, please let me know that in the comments box. And of course, if you're interested to see my journey in Kumano Kodo, please do subscribe below, because I am planning on doing a little bit of vlogging while we are doing this. Okay, all right, so that's it for me today. I'm gonna let you guys go now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you're having a good day wherever you are. Bye.